Alright, so here we have functions and function notation, which most of y'all have already heard me talking about. And we're trying to, again, apply some simple strategies and solve some Algebra 2 concepts. Now, obviously, if you've listened to me in class already, you technically, maybe you're like going, I don't need this to listen to this again. Maybe you are watching this because you do feel like you need it and you want to go back over some things. So I will go back over some of the things we went over in class, but at the same time, I want to make sure I go maybe give you some other insights that maybe for those people that were listening, you know, or that are listening to this might gain from as compared to those who don't listen and are wasting, say, mine and your time. I don't know. There are some days when I'm a little discouraged and I want to just say, whatever. Anyways, moving on. So let's look at this and let's go to the next part. So again, what is function notation? Function notation says instead of having a y, we put f of x. So we have the f of x in place of the y, which basically just means that we have a function. And we're telling it in terms of what? So I could say f of t means function in terms of time, maybe. F of, h might be function in terms of height, something like that. So, settings and situations, we might see some of this with settings and situations, so kind of keep that in mind, especially with the SAT. Now, when I say f of 4, that means I put the number, notice it's in parentheses, in place of the variable that was in parentheses. So I can easily get an answer and say, oh, the f of 4 was equal to 28. Then the next thing I would take notice of is like how are they affected? Remember, outside of the parentheses, I'm just going to put all this up because y'all have already seen me go over this. But outside the parentheses means you're going to move up or down. Inside the parentheses means you're going to move left or right. Now outside you will move, a positive moves up, a minus will move down. Inside the parentheses, a positive will move to the left, a minus will move to the right. So kind of keep that in mind, because these are things that you might want to say write down, but at the same time make sure you remember. Okay? So I guess let's think of it like that. All right. Let's look at a piecewise function. A piecewise function is basically just a function that has like multiple different parts, let's say. And in this case I'm doing a piecewise function that has 3 parts, a left, a middle, and a right. And notice there are 3 different functions that are not necessarily connected. Now the idea here is that can you decide what part of the function you're working with? Like for example, when I say f of 3, I'm looking at 3 here and going up to the 3 and saying, okay, well, based on that goes to this one on this function that's on the right, and I can see that my y value would be 3. Okay, if I said f of negative 3, I see here at this point there's 2 points there, but I'm going with the solid dot one, and it's at 0. So when the x was negative 3, the answer was, or the y was 0. So I kind of keep both of those in mind when I'm working that. Keep in mind, again, the x is the number in the parentheses, and I'm asking for the y value. Alright, so then I've got this here's 2 functions, and the question becomes, like, can I answer when f of x is equal to, or f of 4 plus g of 7? And again, all I'm doing is plugging in the numbers in place of the x's for their respective functions, and then seeing what I get for an answer. Okay? If something like this is something you don't understand, let me know, and then we can go over stuff. I really don't mind. But the point here is, again, let me go back here a little bit. Okay, so the 4 goes into the x of the f function. The 7 obviously goes into the x of the second function, and that's kind of what I'm trying to stress there, that where they belong, and then you just find an answer. Do your arithmetic and from there, and it's not really all that hard. So when I see something like f of 2 minus g of 3, I'm basically saying 3 times 2 minus 7, seeing what I get for an answer, and then minus negative, or 3 squared minus 8 times 3, which is negative 15, and then get my answer. So the idea here is, again, what can we do to, say, simply get quick answers. The direct and inverse variation, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, how can I simplify this? Well, direct variation is easy. It's cross multiply. Y times x, y times the number is equal to x. It's a cross multiply type problem. It's the inverse one that I'm having a little bit of problem with. And not really a problem, so much so as whatever the x and y they say belong together, you need to multiply those two and then divide by the other x or y. Okay, so like in a case that says if the x, if a relationship is inversely proportional when x is 7, y is 28, what is the y when x is 4? Okay, well, I'm mentioning the 7 and 28 first, and they go together. So multiply those two and then divide by the 4. And that would be kind of simply what we could do there. Now, a lot of this is not really, like I said, all that difficult. But the question then becomes, what can we do to make sure that we have a full understanding of this? You know, for example, and let's do another thing here. Okay, so here, take an example. If x and y are directly proportional and x is equal to 3 when y is equal to 5, what is the value of y when x is equal to 60? Now, this is something as simple as saying that this should be, because it's directly proportional, that would suggest that I could say like 3 over 5 is equal to 60 over x. And that would give me, say, 3x is equal to, say, 300. So x is equal to, I don't know why I was about to say 60, but x would be equal to, or I'm sorry, not even x, this y, I'm going to erase that here because I was about to actually tell you something completely different. Okay, this y is equal to 100. That's a y. Okay, and you can test that out. You know, 5 times, or 3 times 20, 3 times 20 would give you 60. Well, guess what? 20 times 5 gives you 100. So you can kind of see that they go up together. Inversely proportional, you would probably, like I said, have to set up something different. You're going to have some other questions that talk about how can you work these out in different ways. And I suggest you take the time to look at them and try to make sure you understand, because the better you can understand this, the easier and the better chance you give yourself for remembering these questions. I think what makes this a little bit harder, at least from what I'm seeing, is the type of questions you get, and can you answer those questions based on what you have. But we'll look at those, and we'll look at, you're going to see on your ACT test some more questions about this, and I'll do my best to answer those after you've taken your test. Okay? Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk about this more later.